This is the 2-minute warning. Please press 1 to ask a question.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us on an update of Tropical Storm Isaias. Just because it's now categorized as a tropical storm doesn't change its potential threat. The storm continued its march toward North Carolina overnight. State emergency managers here, along with our local partners, are preparing for the heavy winds and rain that this storm may bring. And we're asking North Carolinians in the storm's path to make sure they are prepared. I've declared a state of emergency, and we have received a federal emergency declaration for 25 counties so far. We in North Carolina mostly know what to do. You pack your emergency kit, follow local evacuation orders, stay in a safe place, and never drive through flooded roadways. But this time, pack your masks and hand sanitizer in your kit and remember to social distance. The 3 W's, wash, wear, and wait, are just as important during a storm as they ever were. The COVID-19 pandemic remains a threat, and preparations may take longer and look a little different. We can stay safe from the storm and the virus if we're ready. We're watching the forecast carefully and know the storm will impact much of our Piedmont and coastal plain. Tropical storm force winds are expected to begin after dark Monday and into Tuesday morning. Sustained tropical storm force winds are forecast for much of the eastern third of the state, with gusts of 50 to 65 miles per hour for the coastal plain and 30 to 45 miles per hour in central North Carolina. That's enough wind to bring down trees and power lines. Over the weekend, the storm turned much more inland, which increases the threat of heavy rain, tornadoes, and flash flooding in eastern North Carolina. Right now, we expect the heaviest rain along the I-95 corridor, with as much as 7 inches in some places. You can go to readync.org to find flood maps and evacuation zones and see if your home is at risk for flooding. Remember, when it comes to evacuations, know your zone. The forecast has the storm moving quickly, which we hope means the rain and wind won't last as long. But a lot of rain is expected to fall at once, so be on alert for flash flooding and river flooding, especially along the Neuse and Tar rivers. We're coordinating with utility companies which expect widespread outages. I've activated up to 150 National Guard soldiers to help with storm preparations and response as needed. We've been so grateful for their work overseas and during the pandemic here at home. We also appreciate our first responders who are going the extra mile yet again to protect our communities. It's essential to listen to local officials and follow evacuation orders when they're issued. During the pandemic, your home has been the safest place, but that may change as Isaias arrives. The storm, the most important thing is to get out of harm's way if you are told to evacuate. Try to have a plan to stay with friends or family outside of the danger zone. If that doesn't work, or a hotel or a motel is the next option if you can afford it. Shelters will be available for those who need them. Visit your county government website for instructions on sheltering options. Shelters will be screening people for coronavirus symptoms. If someone has symptoms, they'll be directed to a sheltering option where they can more easily isolate or receive medical attention. We know the pandemic has dominated everyone's attention these last few months, but North Carolina emergency managers have been carefully planning for the storm response in a COVID-19 environment. Our state has weathered more than our fair share of storms in recent years. We know how to plan, prepare, and respond when it's over. Nothing about that has changed. But this time, we're going to have to do it with a mask on. Helping your neighbors and loved ones is even more important as this storm approaches. Do it safely, and we'll get through this thing together. I'd like to recognize Mike Sprayberry, our Director of Emergency Management, to provide an update. Mike?
Thank you, Governor, and thank you for your leadership. Good afternoon. Today is day 146 of the COVID-19 response at the State Emergency Operations Center. We have also been activated for Tropical Storm Isaias since Friday. We are continuing to closely monitor the storm track and intensity and possible impacts to North Carolina. While the storm is changing in intensity, now is not the time to be complacent, especially as we may experience storm impacts overnight on Monday. As the storm tracks closer to the state, please heed warnings and directions from local and state authorities. An incident management assistance team from FEMA has now joined us here at the State EOC. Some members are here inside the State EOC, and others are working remotely. Everybody in the State EOC is physically distanced. That's the case with many of our state emergency response team partners. Approximately 120 National Guard personnel are already staging at armories in the east, ready to respond if needed. We have repositioned several water rescue teams consisting of approximately 20 Zodiac boats and 100 swiftwater rescue technicians from the western part of the state to the east, where they are ready to support impacted communities. This is in addition to the local water rescue teams based in the east and central parts of the state. We're also coordinating closely with our counties as they make preparations and finalize decisions about evacuations, sheltering, and other preparations that will be needed. PPE is being provided to our responders to enable them to operate in the COVID-19 environment. Commodities like food, water, and tarps are also being delivered to our county partners. Your personal preparations for a disaster plan and an emergency kit should be completed by now. Be prepared for power outages and the possibility of flooding. In your emergency kit this year, be sure to include masks and face coverings, hand sanitizer, and cleaning products to help keep your families healthy. Visit readync.org for a complete list of items to include your emergency kit. The ReadyNC mobile app has been retired, but all of the same emergency preparedness resources are available on the mobile-friendly readync.org website. As I've stated before, and as the governor just talked about, the COVID-19 pandemic has caused some changes in our evacuations and sheltering operations. We ask you to review your evacuation plan and follow these steps. If told to evacuate by your local officials, evacuate as directed. Don't let concerns about COVID-19 prevent your prompt evacuation. Evacuate the shortest distance possible. Get out of the impacted area. Due to the pandemic, try to stay with family, friends, or at a hotel of your choice to minimize contact with others. If these options aren't available, go to a shelter. Remember, if told to evacuate, don't hesitate. If you live in a safe place inland, please do your part and offer to let family or friends evacuate to your home. Both non-congregate and congregate shelters will be made available for evacuees who require sheltering. Look to your county government website and social media channels for sheltering instructions for your county. Local governments and the American Red Cross are working to implement health screening, social distancing, and cleaning protocols in shelters to prevent the spread of the virus. And speaking of the American Red Cross, they need young people, like college students, who can step up and serve as disaster volunteers. Volunteers can help with shelter reception, feeding, dormitory management, liaisons at hotels, and other vital tasks. If you're over 18, willing and able to volunteer, visit redcross.org/volunteer today. That's redcross.org/volunteer today to get started. It's the North Carolina way. The new Know Your Zone program is also in effect this year. 20 coastal counties have developed coastal evacuation zones based on areas most at risk due to storm surge and river flooding. Visit knowyourzone.nc.gov to see if you live in one of these zones. If you do, remember your zone and listen for it if evacuations are needed and ordered. Again, that's knowyourzone.nc.gov to determine if you are in a new coastal evacuation zone. Being aware and prepared is the key to staying safe during this event and throughout the rest of the hurricane season. Remember the 3 W's: wear, wait, and wash. With kindness and cooperation, we'll all get through to get this together as one team, one mission, and one family. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate your leadership. I'd also like to recognize Colonel Glenn McNeil, the commander of the North Carolina State Highway Patrol. Colonel McNeil.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon. The Highway Patrol stands together with our partner agencies in this joint response to the storm and is prepared to help within the potentially affected communities. As we have unfortunately seen in past storms, the effect of the storm can be experienced far away from the direct path, in the way of flash flooding, high winds, and standing water. We've seen far too many times the loss of life from drivers entering flooded roadways, and we implore each of you to heed our public safety warnings. Turn around. Do not attempt to cross water-covered roadways. It's simply not worth your life. As with any storm, please be mindful of downed trees and power lines in our roadways and treat all intersections without power as a four-way stop. Stay well informed of storm-related information at readync.org and roadway conditions at drivenc.gov. Please keep our emergency phone lines open for emergencies. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you for your leadership, Colonel McNeil. And I will hand it over now to our Secretary of the Department of Transportation, Eric Boyette, to provide an update on their preparations. Secretary Boyette.
Thank you, Governor. We began planning conferences calls on Thursday and will continue through this storm. All of our highway divisions are prepared and ready to respond. Our Highway Division has over 1,800 personnel ready to respond. We have pre-positioned equipment, materials, and supplies. We currently have more than 1,500 pieces of equipment, including trucks and heavy equipment, more than 1,000 chainsaws, and based on the current forecast, our staff is reviewing protocols for downed trees and localized floating. Divisions in our western part of our state are preparing for a separate storm that could bring significant rainfall to our mountain areas. For our ferry division, we are continuing to support evacuation of Ocracoke, and those efforts will continue until about 10:30 on Monday morning. We will be mooring our vessels after that last ferry run. We've evacuated over 1,500 vehicles, 3,000 people from Ocracoke as of noon today. Our evacuations, as I said, will continue until 10:30 a.m. Monday morning. We have also waived all ferry tolls for our evacuation routes. For our ports authority, all of our hurricane preparations are continuing at both ports. Our port of Morehead City is secure. The cargo and container operations are winding down at the port of Wilmington, and the work continues to fully secure the terminals, including securing containers, equipment, and all of our warehouse operations. When conditions warrant, we will shut down operations and also open the port back open when it is safe to resume. Overall, I'm just so proud of all of our work, all of our aviation, our specialty teams, like our bridge maintenance and photogrammetry, are prepared and ready to respond to this event. We have worked very hard in preparation with all of our teams, and our field teams are really working very hard to make sure we're ready and prepared. We take every weather event seriously and will respond quickly and efficiently to restore mobility and ensure we keep our traveling public safe. Governor.
And thank you for your leadership, Secretary Boyette. Also with us today is Major General Todd Hunt, the Adjutant General of the North Carolina National Guard, and Cody Kensley, one of our Deputy Secretaries of the Department of Health and Human Services. Lee Williamson and Karen Magoon are our sign language interpreters, and behind the scenes, Jackie and Jasmine Mativier are our Spanish language interpreters. We'll now take questions from the media, and if you can identify yourself and your organization, we would appreciate it. We'll take our first question.
Our first question will be from Tim Pulliam with ABC 11.
Hello, Governor. This is Tim Pulliam, ABC 11. I'm curious, this is a two-part question. How much state money has been budgeted toward disaster relief and preparedness? And have you spoken to the president, or has he reached out to you regarding this approaching storm?
First, we have budgets in our departments for these storms, and I'll let Mr. Sprayberry speak to that particular issue. I've not spoken personally with the president yet. Usually, if we have a storm, I will be in contact with him. We have FEMA representatives here at the Emergency Operations Center. They are in place. We also have our declaration of emergency. So our coordination with the feds is good. But Mike, I'll let you answer the budget question.
Thank you, Governor, and thank you, sir, for your question. I'd just like to point out, as the Governor mentioned earlier, we did receive a FEMA emergency management declaration that was based upon a request that the Governor made to the President. So that happened very quickly, I think just a little bit over a day and a half. So we think that that was done very well. Secondly, to your budget question, there is a state disaster relief fund. It typically keeps between $10 and $12 million in it. We draw off that as we begin to start operations for response in an event like this. And then once we get a disaster declaration, we'll turn in what's known as project worksheets so that we can be reimbursed for all of our eligible response activities for the state. We can get that money back from the federal government at a rate of 75% for each dollar spent. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Next question, please.
Our next question is from Lake Wood with WASW.
Yes, Governor Cooper. Lakewood here with WASW News. You mentioned earlier about screening at shelters, but as for individuals who know that they are positive, what should they do to seek appropriate shelter?
Sorry, can you repeat your question, please?
As for individuals who know that they are positive ahead of seeking shelter, what type of process or steps should these individuals take?
Well, if you are positive, you should isolate and you should seek, make sure that you are apart from your family and seek a place that would keep you apart from others. We're going to have screening provided at all of our shelters, and if someone has symptoms, then that person will be put somewhere else where there will be alternative sheltering options where they can isolate. Obviously, we do not want positive COVID people in our congregate shelters, and that's one of the reasons why we're doing the screening. Next question, please.
Our final question today will be from Virginia Bridges with the News and Observer.
Thank you, Governor. Virginia Bridges from the News and Observer. What does the more western track mean for the state's preparations? Are we ready for a storm that goes up I-95 rather than up the coast?
I think that when we have a storm that moves more inland, that we become more concerned about our low-lying areas, flash flooding, and riverine flooding. We know that a lot of our communities along the I-95 corridor have had issues with that, with hurricanes in the past. So we do remain concerned about that. One good thing is that we are drier than we normally would be, and this storm is expected to move through rather quickly. So we feel good about that part of it. The thing is, though, if you have up to 7 inches dumped on a place at one time, then you remain concerned about those flash floods and riverine flooding and potential flooding that could occur a day or two from now if the rivers rise. So we're ready for this both ways. We know the track can change even again as it approaches North Carolina, but we're just pretty sure at this point that both the central part of the state and the coastal plain are going to see they're going to see some rain and wind and power outages, so everybody needs to be careful about that. Thank you all for joining us today. We will likely update you again tomorrow, and stay safe, everybody.